Hello and welcome to the Wilder Lincolnshire podcast from the Lincolnshire Wildlife Trust. I'm Melvin Pryor, out and about today. Lauren Storer is also with me on a very windy beach at Gibraltar Point.
It is very windy today. Hello, nice to be here.
In the background, we talk about the wind. We've got the wind turbines. People have got used to seeing those along the coast, haven't they?
We have quite a lot of them off the coast of Lincolnshire. The North Sea is a really shallow sea, and so it's perfect really for offshore energy. Obviously, it's really important that we do have these renewable energy sources, but it's also really important that we have them in the right place and in the right way so that we protect the ocean as well, because the North Sea is actually a pretty incredible sea and there's lots of life in there that people might not know about.
We're going to focus today on what's under the sea, what might get washed off on the shoreline as well, and that's part of an incredible sort of system that we've got here at Gibraltar Point. So what is actually under the sea? We've just had a big watch along the coast, haven't we?
Yes, so last weekend it was National Whale and Dolphin Watch Weekend. So that's part of a larger nationwide project run by the Sea-Watch Foundation. And so people all along the country, along the coast, will have been out and about looking for marine mammals, so dolphins and whales, all along the coastline. And here, we don't really get the big whales because it is a really shallow ocean. We don't get them coming in. But what we do see is a lot of harbour porpoise. So they're a really small cetacean, like a small dolphin, quite solitary. We normally just see one or two of them. Don't tend to be in big pods that you would imagine. They're not very acrobatic, but they're a very sweet little cetacean, and we see them popping up on our coastline.
Are they always there, or do they just arrive at different times of the year?
So that's a really good question. The southern North Sea is actually designated as a special area of conservation for harbour porpoise. So we do have a population that it is there all the time, but they'll use different parts of the southern North Sea throughout the year. So in the winter, they might be in one area feeding, and then in the summer in a different area. But yeah, throughout the year, we do see them off the coast.
Do they come in reasonably close, or have you got to have really powerful binoculars and telescopes to see them?
They can come in quite close, yeah. At the weekend, there were some about 20 metres from the beach, so you
Really?
could see them with your naked eye. Yeah, you didn't need binoculars. They're just really hard to spot because unlike other cetaceans that might be jumping out of the water, porpoise generally, they just come up to breathe. You see a little triangular dorsal fin come up to the surface, and they sometimes make this little sort of cough sound when they come up.
Right.
So sometimes they're called sea pigs because they make this little sort of chuff, and then they'll go back under the water. So you've got to be really quick to spot them. They're not jumping around all over the place. But yeah, they're pretty spectacular.
So keep your eyes out. You might say that. I've certainly seen seals, and we've been up to Nook, of course, which is well known for the seals. But it's amazing what is actually there in the North Sea. A very important water source, isn't it?
It is. And like you say, people generally will think of seals when they think of Lincolnshire, but actually we've got loads of life that's a bit more hidden under the waves. And I think you look out there and think it's quite brown, it's murky, but actually the reason behind that also contributes to the life. So the North Sea, like we said, it's really shallow, but it's also really dynamic as well. There's strong tides, strong currents, and that's mixing around that sediment, which makes it murky, but it also means that there's loads of nutrients moving around that allow for phytoplankton, so tiny little microscopic plants. It allows them to thrive. We get big plankton blooms in the North Sea, and then that is the foundation of the wider food chain. So we get tons of invertebrates in the seabed, crustaceans, mollusks, tons of worms living in the sand, and then that all supports the rest of the life. So fish, cetaceans. Yeah.
So we know the North Sea is great. What about the Wash in particular? Because this is a very special area, isn't it?
It is, yes. So the Wash is one of the most important estuaries that we have in the UK, particularly for the seals and for bird life as well. So it's very shallow. We've got these mud flats, sandbanks. It's very varied. There's lots of different structures under the water. One thing in particular that I think a lot of people don't know that we have in the Wash is Sabellaria reefs.
Sorry, what are they?
Exactly. So we think of reef and we think of, a coral reef in the tropics. But Sabellaria, actually, they're a type of worm called the Ross worm. And they use the sand and the shells to make little tubes for themselves to live in. And when you get huge aggregations of the worms living together, they'll make these structures under the water that are like a reef. And then that creates habitats for other animals to live in.
So they're strong enough to stay stable, are they?
They are, yeah. They're a hard structure. So we call it a biogenic reef. And it's all created by these tiny little worms that live in the seabed.
My goodness. Crabs, no doubt there are crabs in the wash, and I've famous chroma crabs, of course, just the other side of the wash. But we see plenty of those as well, do we?
We do, yeah, plenty of different crabs. So we've got the shore crab, mainly they're washing up on the beach, the little ones. We've got bigger brown edible crabs, all sorts of different crustaceans, as well as shrimp as well. There's a lot of big shrimp fishery in the wash, so we do get lots of shrimps as well.
Now, to get to where we're standing at the moment, producer Sam has decided we needed to be on this particular location that was surrounded by water. So I had to take my shoes and my socks off and wade across to this point here. But actually, where we are, we're seeing this really nice view of the Strand line, aren't we?
We are. So the Strand line is what we call the sort of tide line, where things wash up onto the beach. So every day the tide comes in and out. It leaves behind this line of debris, so shells, stones, little bits of seaweed that have washed up, and actually it provides a really good window into what is living offshore.
Now, it's really fascinating here because when you come to Skegness, those that have been to the beach at Skegness know when the tide is out, it's a long way out. Same situation here. So we're looking across, we can see, I think that must be the North Norfolk coast right across the far side there. But the tide is a long way out, isn't it?
It is, and that is one of the reasons why the North Sea is so productive, is that we have these huge tidal ranges. So the water's really turbulent and it's mixing all those nutrients, but then it will also create these amazing strand lines where we've got all sorts of shells washing up. And if you were to walk along the beach, you'd find all kinds of different species. I mean, even in just a 10-minute walk just now, I think we've probably found about 20 different species just on the sand. So it's really great, like I say, a window into what's living just offshore.
Now, this is a great thing because we're launching a new project which we want as many people to get involved with as possible, aren't we?
Definitely. So this is our new project. It's called Beached Lincolnshire. It's actually based on a project that they're doing in North Wales. They've been doing it for a little while. And all we want is people, when they're out on the beach, you're having a nice walk, if you see something interesting, a shell, sometimes maybe a mermaid's purse, so they're the shark egg cases, we get quite a lot of those washing up. If you find anything interesting like that, all you have to do, it's all on the website, but you'll download an app called iRecord, and that uses an AI software that helps you identify what you found, and then you'll submit your record with photos and it will come into us and it will give us a nice database of what's washing up, any changes over time, any invasive species that maybe it's to do with climate change. All that kind of information is really important for us to know.
Well, it used to always be the thing. If you went to the seaside, you picked up a couple of shells and perhaps took those home. So, I mean, I'm just looking down at the strand line here. Are they, razor clam shells? Are they the long ones there? What are they?
They are, yes, you're absolutely right. And then we've got some other shells down here as well. We've got this, which is a piddock.
A what?
A piddock.
Piddock. What's a piddock?
So they're just a little bivalve. So this is one half of it. There's normally another half.
Right.
But I picked this one up because they sometimes call them angel wings.
Ah.
So that's quite an easy one to identify because if you look at it, it does look like half an angel wing.
And what would there have been a creature in there?
There would, yeah. So just a little mollusk, so small invertebrate living inside. There would have been two halves, and that would have been buried in the sand in the seabed.
I'm going to keep that because it's a really nice one, isn't it? What about the larger shells that we've got down here?
Yes.
Are they from different sort of creatures?
They are. So this one is actually interesting because this is a slipper limpet,
right.
And this is actually an invasive species. So it's not native to the UK. They've come over from America, probably attached to ships or in ballast water inside ships, and then they've been spreading all around the UK. So originally we found them on the south coast, but more and more they're spreading further north, and we're finding them now in Lincolnshire.
So again, this sort of watching what's on the strand line will actually help in your research in that respect.
Exactly, yeah. We'll know over time if we're seeing more of these non-native species, more climate change indicator species, and particularly things like the shark egg cases. That's really good for us to know because it then suggests that we do have sharks and rays breeding offshore.
Even if you can't see them?
Even if you can't see them. And we know that the wash is an important, we call it a nursery ground, so somewhere where young juvenile sharks and rays will live. But seeing the egg cases helps us know exactly what is out there, and it's really good information for us to have.
I notice here, so we're on one of the main strand lines here. There's a lower one just down there. There are higher ones as you actually look up the beach as well. So if you get a really high tide, we'd virtually be under the water here, wouldn't we?
Definitely, and it is really interesting that different beaches, some beaches will only have just the one strand line. Gibraltar Point, the tide does come really high up, so we've got multiple strand lines. So we'll say, if you're going out and having a look, make sure you do look across the whole beach, because you'll find all sorts of interesting things at different points and different times of the year as well, and different weather. If there's been a storm, you'll probably have a fantastic strand line.
Oh, come out after a stormy day.
Exactly, yeah. You'll probably get more interesting things washed up if it's been really strong tides and strong waves. We find that sometimes you'll get these mass strandings. I think people always think, why is there 1,000 starfish that have washed up? And that can often just be it's been really stormy weather. So I definitely recommend, if you're interested in the project, if we've had bad weather, come out and have a look at the strand line, because you'll probably find some more interesting things.
Tell us a bit about your background. Has it always been marine conservation that you've been interested in?
It has, yeah. I grew up in Lincolnshire. I actually grew up just down the road, about 10 minutes down the road from Gibraltar Point. So this has been my local nature reserve since I was a child. And I did do environmental science at university and went on to do marine biology. I've been working abroad for quite a long time. So it's been really lovely to come back to Lincolnshire and get more involved with our local marine environment. I think particularly coming from working in a tropical country, it's been really exciting to encourage people to understand that our local sea is just as interesting as those tropical coral reefs, and really just as important, because without those sort of more boring animals that live in the seabed, you wouldn't have the whales and the dolphins and the seals and all the seabirds, that Lincolnshire's really famous for. You wouldn't have that without the more hidden things living in the seabed.
And that's part of the nature trail, isn't it? You talk about what's under the sea, but what's actually under the sand here at the moment then? Will there be creatures under there waiting for the tide to come back in again?
There'll be plenty of worms. If you walk across the sand, you often see little worm sort of burrows. You'll see little piles of sand. So they'll be from worms that are living down deep inside the sand, and they'll be fine. They'll just be waiting in there for the tide to come back in. A lot of the things that you'll see along here, sadly, they are dead, but there will be life within the sand as well. If you take a spade and start digging, you'll definitely find some life in there as well.
Something that isn't going to come back to life, I don't think, is as I was walking across to the point here, there was a jellyfish. It looked fine to me, but it's been out in the air, out in the hot sun today. That's not going to survive, is it?
No, sadly not. We've been having really hot weather at the minute, and that normally does coincide with getting lots of jellyfish on the coast. So the hot weather encourages what we call jellyfish blooms. So there'll be thousands of them at the minute out in the water, growing, breeding. They not just drift around. They don't really have much control over where they're going, but they'll just be drifting along the coastline. Yeah, sadly, when they do wash up, they won't survive.
Are most of our jellyfish okay and harmless?
Yes, yeah, pretty much. The ones that we find around here, mostly it's just the moon jellyfish. They're the ones that are quite clear. They don't have much colour on them. It's like a nettle sting. They're not really going to harm you. You'll sometimes get compass jellyfish. They're the ones that have sort of brown lines across them that does look like a compass. Yeah. They can give a little bit of a nastier sting, but still it's nothing major.
Excellent. And I suppose jellyfish are a food for the mammals, are they? Or what eats jellyfish?
Yes. So, globally, what we think of when we think of predators for jellyfish is turtles.
Oh, okay.
None here. No, none here. So here it will just be other fish, crustaceans. They'll all have a little nibble of a jellyfish, yeah.
Will they tuck into something like that? Absolutely amazing. So we've got the sea, we've got the sand, we've got the dunes, and then we've got the reserve itself. But how do you identify the reserve and protected areas in the sea?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And we are actually quite lucky around the UK. We do have a whole suite of different marine protected areas, and we have quite a lot of them right off the coast here as well. And there's different levels of protection. So some will be protected for a certain species, like the harbour porpoise, or a certain feature. Maybe they've got sabellaria reefs, the Ross worm. They're really important, so they're often protected. And then sometimes they'll be protected against different activities. So some will be protected so that you can't fish in them or you can't develop in them. A lot of them it's for bottom trawling. So that's where fishing gear will be scraping along the seabed, which can obviously be quite damaging. And so some marine protected areas will protect against that. But there definitely is more that we could do. At the minute, there's been a whole new range of marine protected areas called marine conservation zones, and highly protected marine areas. So they've sort of got the top level of protection. And really what we'd like to see is more areas of our ocean protected at that highest level where the most damaging activities are restricted.
But for most people walking along the coast, they're not going to know that, are they? There's no signs that take us out, no fencing or anything that take us out into the sea, is there?
There's not, no. And actually, if you look out from here, you are looking at one of the most protected areas of our local sea. In the Wash, there's a whole range of different protections because we've got that great life from the internationally important populations of seals and the seabirds as well. So around the UK, most of our protected areas are for seabirds. And so the Greater Wash is one of those that is really highly protected for all of our wonderful bird life.
Always like to give Lapwings magazine a bit of publicity, and you mentioned their bottom trawling, bit on that in the current magazine, and you also feature in the magazine as well, don't you?
Yes, we've recently just done an article all about our local marine life. So it's again what's beneath the waves, trying to understand more about what that hidden life is, and really trying to get people to appreciate that you might look out there and think, oh, it's a bit bleak, there's not much going on, but actually underneath the water it's teeming with life.
Just coming back then to the new project that you're just launching, Beached Lincolnshire.
Yes.
Just remind us what we need to do.
Yes, so if you go onto the Lincolnshire Wildlife Trust website, we've got our brand new marine webpage on there, and there will be a link on there to Beached Lincolnshire. All you'll need to do is download the iRecord app, and there's a Beached Lincolnshire activity on there that you can sign up to, and then it's really easy when you're out and about, see something interesting, take a few photos, try and get photos from different angles. Some of the shells, they're really hard to identify, so you have to get both sides of the shell, otherwise there's no way of knowing what they are. And the AI software will help with that, but I'd always recommend find an ID guide and have a look as well, and then all that information will go into the Lincolnshire Environmental Records Centre.
You know the challenge is going to be for you. You'll get loads of photographs coming in and you'll have to do the identifying.
Hopefully the app will help with that, but I find it really interesting as well, so I'm quite keen to look and see what people are finding. So it'll be really good, and it will test my identification skills as well, because there's so many things that wash up on the beach. There's still things that I have no idea what they are, and so I'll be there with an ID book having a look to see what they are.
Well, let's hope we get a good response to this. We're looking for people to get involved with it. Go to the website and find out more details on that. And that's just about it from Gibraltar Point here on the beach and on the Strand Line as well. Hope you've enjoyed this edition of the Wilder Lincolnshire podcast from the Lincolnshire Wildlife Trust.